Okay, so we all know the story of Pearl Harbor, right? The attack that pulled America into World War II. But what if I told you that wasn't the only battle fought on American soil that day? Yeah, on this tiny, super isolated Hawaiian island, a lone Japanese pilot crash lands and kicks off this week of terror that, honestly, history has almost completely forgotten. So let's set the scene. The date is, of course, December 7th, 1941. And while the entire world is looking at the smoke pouring out of Pearl Harbor, our story, it's just getting started, about 120 miles away, on an island totally cut off from all that chaos. So you've got this incredible contrast. The world's attention is glued to these burning battleships, the massive loss of life. And at the exact same time, there's this single Japanese plane just sputtering, it's damaged, and it's desperately trying to find anywhere to land. And where it comes down, well, that's what's going to ignite a conflict that absolutely nobody could have seen coming. And that brings us to our battlefield, which is, well, it's about as unlikely as you can get. It's the island of Niihau. It's a private island. They actually call it the Forbidden Isle. Think about this. No phones, no electricity. It's a world away from the war that is, quite literally, about to crash land on its shores. So, boom. Here's how it starts. A state-of-the-art Japanese Zero, fresh from the raid on Pearl Harbor, comes crashing down. Now, the pilot's mission, it was supposed to be simple. Land on what he thought was an uninhabited island and just wait for a rescue sub. Spoiler alert, he was very, very wrong. All right, so let's meet the guy in the cockpit. This is Airman First Class Shigenari Nishikaichi. Now, this guy's a veteran pilot. He was just in the skies over Pearl Harbor. And now, he's stranded, he's injured, and this is key. He's carrying some very sensitive military documents. And who's the first person to find him? Not the military, not the police, but this guy, a local rancher named Howard Kiliahano. He sees the wreck, he walks up to it, and in that moment, he becomes the very first American civilian to come face-to-face with an enemy combatant on the ground in World War II. I mean, can you imagine? And this is where it gets really interesting. Kiliahano's first move is just brilliant. Before anyone even knows what's really going on, he has the presence of mind to walk up, disarm the pilot, he takes his pistol, and he grabs his papers. This single act right here, it is absolutely crucial. It basically sets the whole conflict in motion. Okay, so the pilot's disarmed, and things get, well, they get weird. For a little while, it's just this strange, tense waiting game. Remember, the islanders still have no idea their country is at war. They're just faced with this downed pilot. And what happens next is the turning point, where a guest becomes a very real threat. You have to really wrap your head around this. No radio, no telephone. The people living on Niihau are completely in the dark. So what do? They do what they know. They extend traditional Hawaiian hospitality. They're not treating him like an enemy. They're treating him like a guest who just had a really bad day and needs some help. But, there's a problem. Nobody can talk to him. So to communicate with Nishikaichi, they bring in the only two people on the island who speak Japanese, Irene and Yoshio Harada. They're a Japanese-American couple who live and work there. And at first, they're just helping out, trying to smooth over this very strange but so far peaceful situation. And then it happens. Everything changes. Later that night, someone finally gets a battery-powered radio to work, and the news just crackles through. Japan has attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States is at war. In an instant, the outside world violently crashes right into Niihau's reality. And this is the pivot point. You can see it right here. After hearing the news, the pilot talks to the Haradas. He tells them Japan is winning the war, that this is just the beginning. And in that moment, they make a fateful choice. Their allegiance flips. They decide they're going to help the pilot get his papers back, get his gun back, and just like that, a peaceful situation turns hostile. What follows is just a week of pure terror. This island paradise, it basically transforms into a tiny war zone, controlled by one pilot and his two new allies. And man, things escalate so fast it's terrifying. The Haradas free Nishikaichi, they get a shotgun, they get the pilot's pistol back, and what's their first move? They go straight after Howard Kaliyohano, the guy with the papers, and start shooting at him. The peaceful standoff is officially, violently over. So now they're armed, and the trio just seizes control of the island. They start taking hostages, they burn down Howard Kaliyohano's house, trying to destroy those secret papers inside. For 7 days, this small community is held captive, completely terrorized by a war they didn't even know had started. But this reign of terror was about to come to an end, and it would be thanks to one man. This is Ben Kanahele. He's another local rancher who, along with his wife, was taken hostage, and he is about to become the unlikely hero of this whole story.
So it all comes down to this final, brutal confrontation. Nishikaichi shoots Ben Kanahele, not once, not twice, but 3 times. In the chest, the hip, and the groin. And you'd think that would be it, right? But incredibly, he doesn't go down.
I mean, just fueled by pure adrenaline and rage, the wounded Kanahele, who was apparently a famously strong guy, literally hoists the pilot up into the air and smashes him against a stone wall, killing him. It's just unbelievable. In the aftermath, a desperate Yoshio Harada took his own life. The battle for Niihau was over. So the violence on the island itself was over, but the impact of this incident, it was just beginning to ripple outward. And it would end up contributing to one of the most tragic chapters in all of American history. Hey, remember those papers that Howard Kaliohano grabbed right at the beginning? Well, they were recovered, and it turns out they contained vital intelligence. We're talking naval codes, flight plans, the whole deal. This discovery was a huge heads up for U.S. intelligence, and it forced Japan into this costly, difficult process of changing their codes right at the start of the war. So yeah, that military consequence was huge, but the social fallout, that was far, far more devastating. The story of what happened on Niihau spread like wildfire. The story of a Japanese-American couple siding with an enemy pilot became national news. And this one single event on this one tiny island, it just poured gasoline on a fire of paranoia and racial prejudice that was already burning across the nation. Just 2 months later, President Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066, and that's the order that authorized the forced removal and incarceration of over 120,000 Japanese Americans. And this right here is the tragic legacy. Now look, the Niihau incident wasn't the only cause, of course not, but it became this powerful piece of propaganda. It was held up as proof that Japanese Americans couldn't be trusted, and it helped justify the mass incarceration of an entire community. So this small 7-day battle on a remote island, it had consequences that affected over 100,000 lives and left a real stain on American history. It's a pretty stark reminder that the impact of a conflict is never just contained to the declared battlefield. Which kind of leaves us with a question to think about, right? Where are the unexpected front lines today?